Hey everyone, Jon and Travis here with another fantastic episode of Elbows Tight Podcast. John, how was that?
Man, I really enjoyed it. I think we could have talked a lot longer.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting topic, and we hit so many different topics talking about, especially, women, self-defense, victims. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, today we have the founders and secretary of a nonprofit for women in human trafficking and sexual assault called A New Grip. These women are Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners. One is a cop, one is in cybersecurity, and then one is a black belt that runs her own school and then does this also, and she's the president. Their names are Samantha, Holly, and Christina. Amazing ladies. I've been talking to them for a while, talking to Holly for a while on how to get them on the show, because they all live in different areas and they all obviously have different time zones, and so it was a big debacle to make sure that we had everyone. And not only that, our lives have been crazy lately too. So finally got it done, and it was well worth the wait. And there's 5 of us on this episode, so sometimes we do talk over each other, and so.
Wasn't that bad, though?
It wasn't that bad.
Just like I just talked over Travis, it's kind of like that, and then we catch it.
Yeah. So I try to deliberately. We both try to deliberately ask a certain person a question and then go down the line. So you hear basically every question. You hear 3 different positions on the question and how they view things. So it's still relatively short. It's about an hour and a half. So if you guys can't listen to it all right now, I promise it's well worth the whole thing. They give what are some of the things we talk about, John?
Well, without giving it away too much, this was the first opportunity where we had some, I would say, subject matter experts in
agreed.
Women, jiu-jitsu, self-defense if you're attacked by some violent person on the street. It's the first time we've had actual law enforcement where we could ask those questions and get opinions, and I really appreciated it. I think if you want some thoughts on that, this is the episode to listen to.
We do ask some hard questions. There are some uncomfortable things talked about in the show, so if at any moment you want more guidance or you feel that you've been in one of these situations, please feel free to talk to them or let us know, and we can put you in contact with them. It's a great episode, and one thing that we cover that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough is, one, how popular, well, I don't want to say popular, how prominent human trafficking is in the United States, and then 2, women in jiu-jitsu, and how we kind of like we talked about in our early episode, but how do we get more women into jiu-jitsu, and from their perspective, how can men be more welcoming too? So it's just a fantastic episode. We could have gone longer, but it's getting
zones.
late. Yeah, different time zones. I think they're 3 hours ahead in one part, so it's like almost 10 o'clock at night. So, but hey, guys, make sure that you follow us all on Instagram, Facebook, everything like that. You follow them. All their links are going to be down in the description below. Donate to A New Grip through their website. You could buy swag. You could buy patches, all kinds of cool stuff for them to support them. They are a newer foundation, so they're still building and growing. So if you guys want to help them, they talk about how you can do that through their website and whatnot. So it's a great listen. I promise you will enjoy it. And thanks everyone for listening. Hopefully you guys have a good time, and let us know what you guys think about it. And if you want to have more guests like this, there's plenty of foundations out there where they help people through jiu-jitsu. So John, you got anything else?
Nope. Enjoy the listen.
Thank you guys so much. Oh, beverage of the day, John. What's the beverage of the day?
Oh, man, we're slipping. We got Big Wave Golden Ale by Kona Brewing Company. It's really good. We're trying to lay off the IPAs, dad bods and all. Yeah. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Also, we have patches. If you guys want a patch, hit me up on Instagram. I'll give you our P.O. Box number, or you can look in the description on the P.O. Box or of our Instagram. You guys can send us a patch. We will send you a patch. So I haven't said that in a while.
You have it.
So thank you guys so much for watching, listening at home. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, and we'll talk to you later. Peace.
Support for Elbows Tight is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped recently launched the Ultimate Men's Hygiene Bundle, the Performance Package. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code ETP20 at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that's about 8 million balls.
That's a lot of balls, Johnny. When Manscaped reached out to work with us, I instantly thought, yes, what a deal. I've been using Manscaped products for a while now, and when they mentioned helping out with the podcast, I thought it was a no-brainer. I have the Lawnmower 4.0 now, but I had the Lawnmower 3.0 and absolutely loved it. Also, most people think about Manscaped as just trimmers, but really they have ball deodorant, ball toner, the weed whacker, which is your favorite thing, right, John?
Yeah, I love the weed whacker. Look, I'm about to hit like 45 years old, so I got hair growing out of everywhere now. So it's coming out my ears. I'm like, man, where is that weed whacker? It's definitely my favorite.
Get 20% off and free shipping with the code ETP20 at Manscaped. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code ETP20. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools to get the job done with Manscaped. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Elbows Tight Podcast. It's your host, Travis and John. John, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm glad it's Friday. I'm glad the work week is over.
I know, and we got nice cold beers, beautiful rainy weather in the Pacific Northwest outside right now. I mean, it's like literally 300 days a year we have horrible weather, so this is nothing new to us. But how's your day going, John?
It's going pretty good, pretty good.
You've been sick the last couple of days.
I have, yeah. It's been wonderful. This is the best I felt all week. We had a good COVID scare at work, you know. I'm sure everyone deals with that now, so a lot of us have to ROM. I did not catch COVID. After 4 tests at my house, they were all negative, so I'm good to be here.
That's good, man. I'm glad you don't have COVID because I would have to be wearing a mask right now. This would be kind of weird to do it.
Yeah, kind of.
So today's a very special interview. I've been looking forward to this. We have a New Grip Foundation, ladies from a New Grip Foundation. I've been in talks with them for, I don't even know, probably since last year. I don't know who I've been talking to. Who's been running the Instagram? Holly? Pleasure, Holly, to finally put a face to the messages. But I've been talking with them for months now, trying to get an interview going. And there's 3 of you. You guys all live in like different time zones and all have careers, families, and everything like that. And same with us. So I'm super excited that we finally get to sit down and have a conversation and hear about your guys' foundation. So thank you so much for giving us your time. So,
thank you for having us.
No problem.
It's like, I know how it is. Right now, everybody's like, I don't know if I should talk or somebody else should talk. You know, I get it. Totally get it.
Yeah, if you guys...
It's going to be like that the whole time.
Yeah, if you guys are just listening to this home and you don't see the YouTube video, there are 5 of us on this interview, 3 guests, and then John and I. So, and with John and I combined, we equal 1 person. So that's, you know, it's a fun one.
And I'm like, and Travis has all your guys' name down pat. I'm like trying to read the screen. I'm like, what is he trying to do to me right now?
Don't put me on blast. I don't have all your guys' name memorized right now. So, but hey, let's go ahead and get to know who you ladies are. If we could just go one by one and who you are, how long you've been training, and then how you got into jiu-jitsu, please.
My name is Samantha Glenn. I'm one of the co-founders and president of A New Grip, and I'm currently a blue belt. I'm kind of a 6-year blue belt. I started the police academy, and that kind of slowed down my training, so I'm kind of accepting the fact that I'm going to be a forever blue belt, and that's totally okay. I've been training about 9 years, and I started training under Ezra Lennon at Finney's MMA, and then I transferred to a different gym, and now I'm under Kirk Huff.
I'm going to join you with the forever blue belt, by the way, so don't worry about that. But there's no rush. There's no rush.
It's for the long haul. Well, pleasure to meet you, Samantha. Thank you.
My name is Christina Hauk. I'm also the co-founder and president of A New Grip as well. I've been training jiu-jitsu for about 10 years now. I'm a black belt. I actually just got my black belt in November, so I'm very excited about that. Thank you so much. I started training under Hene Nazare Azevedo, who is a 4-time world champion in jiu-jitsu. And then I was able to take my passion and love for jiu-jitsu and move over to Abu Dhabi and teach over there for 4 years at an all-girls school. We won the title for, world champion jiu-jitsu in Abu Dhabi for 3 years in a row. Came back here, started my own gym in New York, and have recently, within the last year, brought my gym down to Pennsylvania. So
congratulations on the black belt, and that's a big feat. And And one day, hopefully, I can say that. Jon might be 20, 30 years, but I promise you'll get there, Jon.
Maybe.
One day.
My name's Holly Medlin. I am a purple belt, but I train no-gi, so I don't have the whole I trained under so-and-so story. Probably been training in mixed martial arts for the better part of 10 years, but I'll be forever purple belt. I have a neck injury, so I don't get the privilege of training much anymore. So I just do CrossFit instead, which doesn't sound like a smart trade-off, but
that's
I gotta do something.
It's the opposite for us. We started off in CrossFit
and then switched to Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah. So I was in great shape when I started Jiu-Jitsu, and it meant absolutely nothing. It's like the first 5-minute roll, I thought I was going to literally die. It was to the point where I think I looked at Jon, and I was like, if this were to happen in real life, I would die. Like literally, I would die. Just it's incredible. And everyone in our school were white belts. You know what I mean? And I had no idea what I was doing. And then the short term of a little bit of training, then I started to realize, like, wow, this stuff is really powerful. And the nice thing about you being a purple belt is you always get to skip warm-ups.
That's true. That's true. That's nice.
That's a thing. I didn't know that. I didn't get
I wear a
privilege.
purple belt on the way to school just so I can skip the warm-up, then I put my blue belt back on when I get into class.
Perpetrating.
Yeah.
In trouble for that.
Hopefully my professor doesn't hear that. No,
he's not listening.
Yeah. You're going to be on a shark drill immediately.
So what got you ladies into training? Holly, what got you started with it?
So I started at a martial arts school just doing kickboxing, and then I started doing karate, and through getting my black belt in karate, we did some groundwork, and so I asked my professor about it, and he was like, oh, that's technically jiu-jitsu, and I was like, well, this is fucking awesome. So I want to hurt people more, and so I started doing jiu-jitsu.
And then stuck with it? You caught the bug and wanted to go?
Yeah, all the way. So when I wasn't getting punched in the face in sparring, I was just getting twisted in the pretzel knots. So it's great.
There's this shirt out there that says, like, talk to me about murder yoga. And I was like, that's so true. It's like, it's the gentle art of folding people while they're still in clothes. It's like...
Yeah, we call it unwilling yoga.
Well, it's funny too. You said you've been doing MMA for what, 10 years or longer than 10 years? We have a friend that has been doing no-gi MMA for probably 10, 15 years, and he just switched over to traditional jiu-jitsu, and they put a white belt on him. Let me tell you, he went in and cleaned out everyone at his school. Then he went into like some round robin tournaments.
Yeah.
Smoked everyone. I think within like 2 months they put a blue belt on him. Now he's wearing a purple belt.
Yeah.
This is all within like 8 months. So it was pretty cool to see.
Well, and to like put in more he also has a black belt in judo though. There is a little bit of experience there. But jiu-jitsu is like a completely different animal sometimes, a lot of the times. So what about the other ladies? How are you guys getting to jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, sure. So I started jiu-jitsu actually with MMA training. So I wanted to try out cage fighting. I grew up watching like Misha Tate, and I just fell in love with just the strength and the power that women had, and the symbol that I felt like women's MMA had brought. So I went to the gym, signed up for MMA, and then actually fell in love with the ground game. So I had one MMA fight. Been doing jiu-jitsu ever since. I just absolutely love it.
I applaud people that want to do MMA and get punched in the face for fun. I've done it a couple times, getting punched in the face, not like MMA, and I don't think it's fun. Like I applaud people that want to do that. It's not for me personally.
Well, you remember me in San Diego trying out that.
Krav Maga.
Yeah, that was the only thing open. Everything else was closed for COVID. So I was like, I'll give it a try. Yeah, that was rough. I know. I hear a lot of people make fun of it, but I went and tried it, and I was like, yeah, that was some rough stuff.
Yeah, it's no joke. And once again, I realized, like, if I was taken to the ground and someone was punching me in the face, it's a completely different story than I'm going to berimbolo 15 times to a back take. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to work a whole lot of times. Mm-hmm. So, but Samantha, how'd you get into it?
So when I was going to school for my criminology degree, I wanted to be in the FBI, and one of my favorite teachers told me, well, you gotta be like a really good accountant, or you gotta be really fucking smart. And I'm like, well, I'm street smart, but I'm not book smart, so that's not gonna get me into the FBI. He's like, well, you could also do jujitsu or something cool like that and have a really good self-defense background, and that could possibly get you there. So the next day was my 21st birthday, and I went and signed up at a local jujitsu gym, and then I got bit by the bug, and the rest is history.
There you go. So how did you guys all meet and collaborate together for the first time? Because it's super interesting that you guys are from all different walks of life and from around the country, and you collaborated to make this amazing foundation. How did that first start off?
So I actually have family that's in Missouri where Samantha lives, and I spent a summer in 2014 down there, and I happened to train during my vacation time at Samantha's gym, and we became acquaintances, Facebook friends, so on and so forth, and just kind of stayed in touch through social media. And then during COVID, we were both kind of posting about human trafficking and just making it more aware of, the different things that are happening. So I had reached out to her and I was like, hey, we have this interest. And she was like, well, let's combine jiu-jitsu and human trafficking. And so we kind of just within a month came up with this idea, brought the community together to ask about like names. And then our baby was born. And then Holly kind of fell from the heavens to us. I
actually met Holly's husband in the police academy. Holly's husband was a Creve Coeur police officer while I'm a St. Louis County police officer, and we had a training together, pressure point and control tactics, and I was talking to him about jiu-jitsu. He's like, oh, my wife does jiu-jitsu, and I kind of messaged her, reached out to her. She wanted to get involved, and like Christina said, fell from the heavens because Holly is the backbone for us. Like, we say jump, she asks how high. She is everything for this nonprofit. She's our secretary and a godsend.
Stop it.
Stop it.
She's like, tell me more.
God, stop. Thank you so much.
That's good. That's cool, but like, what was the inception, those beginning like months or years or whatever? Well, it'd be months, right? Because it started during COVID. What was that inception first like? Like, were you guys brainstorming, and what were some other ideas that you had before you actually came up with like this?
So we knew that we wanted to help trafficking survivors. At first, we didn't really know how. We knew we wanted to incorporate jiu-jitsu, but we didn't know how to get to that point because a lot of social workers and people working within other nonprofits aren't very receptive to hearing that we want to teach trauma survivors a martial art, because you would think that that would cause more trauma. But it's actually been proven that martial arts can actually help a trauma survivor overcome their trauma. So in the beginnings, there was a lot of push and shove and trying to find other nonprofits that would actually work with us. So we don't actually have our own facility. We go to other nonprofits that actually house survivors and work with the survivors there. So it was a lot of push and shove in the beginning and trying to get people to be receptive of our ideas.
Was it hard to get people to try it at the beginning? I mean, was it at one or two, or were you able to get like a good group right off the bat, or did it take a little convincing?
So the way that we kind of brought it up is we went to the administration of the nonprofits first, and then wanted to kind of introduce ourselves. So the nonprofit that I work with here is North Star Initiative, and the way that we kind of had it set up is I spent a day over there. I saw the facility, I saw the survivors, I met with them. We went through kind of the trauma-informed training that we would give to them, PowerPoints, gave them all the information they could ever wanted, asked for our contact information for follow-up questions. And I was very lucky to have a large amount of survivors that were very interested into trying the program. They wanted, they have all different kinds of therapeutic classes and programs available for these survivors, that this was something that they had never done before. And it was very active, and it was something just out of the realm that they were very interested in trying.
So is there like warming up period when these people first come to you after these horrible situations? Do you guys see like a kind of I won't say resentment, but it's kind of hard for them to break free of these positions that we do get into jiu-jitsu and warm up to it. How long does that typically take for someone to be okay with, someone in mount when they've been in such a bad situation?
Intimate.
Like it's a very intimate thing, right? And I can only imagine that someone that's gone through some of these things, and does it happen right away, or do you guys have like classroom and then you're kind of like, okay, so we're going to ease into it and try different things first?
So we actually have an introduction to jiu-jitsu program that we put the survivors through first, and it's a 3-day program. Day 1, we do a PowerPoint. We try to keep it short because people don't want to sit through a death by PowerPoint, but kind of the history of jiu-jitsu, why we're doing this, why we think jiu-jitsu can help, and then that first day we show them some light stuff like, I'm going to put my arm here and grab this grip, or just some light exercises. Day 2 is when we really go hands-on, and I don't know how Christina runs it in PA, but this last class that we had here in St. Louis, we taught a takedown, a leg sweep, and from the takedown we went into side control and then taught them. With this last group, day 1, we had a survivor who was not comfortable. She was totally off put by the idea of doing an armbar, didn't want to do it. But when we went into side control, she was all about side control, and she was getting chest to chest, wasn't scared of it. So I don't think it's a one size fits all for a survivor. I think it depends on the survivor's trauma that they've been through, the level of trauma, and their comfortability level. And that's like the great thing about our program is if you don't want to do it, we can teach you something else. There's a million things we can teach you, and it's not just one size fits all for each person.
So that has to be very rewarding, especially when you see one of these survivors light up when they find that, something that they actually enjoy, and they're like, they can start growing again in like another personal way. That must be pretty satisfying for you ladies when that starts to happen, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Holly, you want to go ahead and elaborate on that?
And I would say, for sure, we're constantly adapting the program and how we approach the survivors. I mean, the first time that Sam and I went to the safe house to work with some young ladies, we were terrified because we thought they were going to hate it. So we started off really slow, and we were like, well, we'll just put the clothespins on their clothes and have them play the game where they just try to grab the clips, because we didn't know how much of an appetite they would have for just like doing something. So, and at the time we had a little less of mat space. We were like using a used wrestling mat. So there wasn't a lot of room. We had somebody donate some really nice jiu-jitsu mats for us now for the survivors. So now when we meet with them, we teach them about fighter stance and break falls and why they're important, and how it kind of helps you build trust with your own body. We do some light stretching, and then we do shrimp drills, and we kind of understand why those are important. And a lot of the girls, there seems to be like 2 categories when it comes to just doing the break fall, because they're like, oh, is this going to hurt? And some of them are like, we are not into that. We need to be basically almost sitting on the ground to practice a break fall. And then there's some girls that are like, we're going to fucking send it, and they will just fall and slap the mats as hard as possible. And then some of the girls, you really have to encourage them and cheer them on to hit the mats as hard as possible, take out your aggression, be loud. It's totally cool. But yeah, they get that spark just from doing that, and it just, their excitement grows when you show them, okay, we're going to do this technique. This is what it looks like. These are the expectations. It might hurt a little bit because you're not used to falling, but once they actually have success doing it, they light up completely. So far, we've only really had a survivor kind of question one of the positions that we were asking them to be in, which was for the armbar. So we just modified to Americana, and she was totally fine with that. So we always give them room to speak up about how they feel. So if they don't like something, we're like, okay, cool, moving on.
So how often do you guys take on new survivors, and how long is your guys' course before, or do you continuously work with these survivors for long periods?
That's what I was curious too. If can they stick with it? Like, do they end up becoming like a permanent part of your program, and maybe they help later on, or anything like that happen?
So they're a part of our program for as long as they're in the safe house. or at least that's how it is the way that I run it. As far as new survivors, I allow the survivors to come. If I'm doing a class and they weren't there previously, I let them jump right in because you can just modify. And being that the classes are so small and intimate, it's very easy to kind of adjust the positioning based on the amount of people that you have in the class. And because they have no recollection or know what jiu-jitsu is, you can change the program that you have assigned for that day, because everything's brand new to them. So we do have a graduation period, like what Samantha was saying before. After the 3 classes, we typically graduate them, and that's when they'll get like a certificate as well as a brand new gi, kind of like a brand new fresh start, and then they'll go into what we call as like the continuing education program. Eventually, our plan is if they leave the safe house, we would love to be able to actually sponsor them as if they're like our athlete, and pay for a year of their training at a gym that either they choose or they trust us to find for them, as well as the gear that they're going to need to be able to continue that journey.
So, Samantha, when you are on duty in police work, do you find survivors and then you're like, hey, by the way, I've run this nonprofit, or do you find that kind of like a conflict of interest when you're on duty and you want to help people? Like, do you ever throw it out there while you're working?
I don't, because I don't typically come across trafficking survivors. While St. Louis is a hub, city in particular is a hub, and I'm just outside the St. Louis city. And most of the time when I'm coming across any type of like sexual assault case or anything like that, I'm referring them to our Bureau of Special Investigation Detectives. I give them resources, but typically we're working with nonprofits that already have survivors housed there. That way they can sign paperwork and have the administration of that house sign the paperwork stating that we're not going to get sued, obviously, if someone gets hurt, and we actually do it at the house with them. That way we're in their environment. We're not just at some random gym, because some of the people that we're working with at Crisis Aid, people are actively looking for these individuals. So they have to stay safe, and their safe house location is a very disclosed location. And for their safety, we like to go to them. So yeah, kind of like what you said, conflict of interest. I don't want to make any situation unsafe for any survivor out there. I do promote my nonprofit within police work in general, and I tell people about it, like, hey, if you know of anyone in any houses or any situations that would like to reach out to us, here's our card, or anything like that. So
very interesting. Christina, so when you do your classes and you put that black belt on in front of them now, what is their reaction? Do you show them like, hey, look, like, you're a woman, I'm a woman, you can achieve this if you just put your mind to it, like, trust me, I've been doing it for a while. Like, does it show extra inspiration to these women when you gee up and you're ready to go?
I think it does to a certain point, because jiu-jitsu is so new to them. They don't understand, I don't think, like the levels at that point when we first introduce it to them. And a belt to me is just to tie my gi, but to be able to kind of come onto the mat and have a different colored belt than them, I think that in their minds is like, oh, that's really cool. I want to be able to kind of achieve that. Or then they start to ask questions, and once they get into the program and they learn the art itself a lot more, then they start to understand the work and the dedication and everything that comes along with the belt and the journeys as you continue through jiu-jitsu.
Do you ever have people come to your school afterwards and continue training when they graduate from your program?
So far, no. The house that I work with is about 2 hours away from where I actually live, so I travel whenever I go. I travel there to be able to see the survivors. But eventually, that would be really cool if they were ever, relocated to an area close to me. I would 100% welcome them.
That would be
with open
amazing
arms.
to see someone come in. You're like, you always have like this special connection with them, and I'm sure Samantha and Holly, you can attest to it. If you were to work with these people outside of the program too, it'd have that really special connection that you're like, I know what you've been through. I'm trying to still help you and everything like that. Like, I could only imagine. I mean, we get to talk to people that we've looked up to from jiu-jitsu with the podcast, obviously, and just talking to these people, and they have like no real impact on our life outside of like we like their knowledge, and talking to them is like it's a cool connection with us. So I can only imagine how deep you guys get with these people and how inspirational it can be for them. You know.
Do you guys is this just trafficking, or do you have like DV victims in there as well, or? Because I was curious about that.
Sexual exploitation, sexual assaults, human trafficking, any type of sex crime, basically. Yeah, and most DV victims have experienced that, especially in intimate partners. So.
Years ago, I was an animal control officer, and I went out for some dogs attacking some people in a city out here, and the attack happened right outside of one of those safe houses you're talking about, but it was for domestic violence victims. And I went around trying to get statements. Nobody would give me a name. Nobody that was in that house. So I could see why it would be extremely secretive, and nobody would want to know who's there. Have you ever had any problems with? I mean, has anyone ever really tried to find them when you go there? I mean, have you noticed anything like that?
With the survivors that I work with, we always have to ask, like, if we can take photos just for ourselves and stuff like that. And we have a couple of very specific people that are not allowed on social media, around social media. I couldn't even give them my business card for them to be able to reach out to ask questions. I think it just depends on the situation, the scenario, and how fresh or new they are to the house and what situation they're coming out of when they get there.
That's why I was wondering if you could really even reach out to the students, after the 3 days, if you even had a means to like really hunt them down and get in contact with them if you needed to.
Yeah,
that's a great segue, Holly. Yeah, I was going to say, like, how does that play into like your day-to-day operation when you're like running like social media and whatnot? Because Christina kind of alluded to it. Sometimes you can't post success stories. You know what I mean? I think you're trying to get to that point. Like, how do you kind of promote this when it is
so
it
secretive?
Does have to be secretive. Yeah.
Right. I mean, so the safe house that Samantha and I go to, we have only worked with underage survivors so far, and we're not allowed to take pictures of anything or post anything. Everything has to be scrubbed. Like, if I post on social media, I wipe the metadata off the photos before I even put them out there because I'm that paranoid on their behalf. So future state, we would like to get to a point where they could write testimonials for us, and like we could just read them and just scrub all of any like identifiable information, because there has been a situation with the last group just recently, like where the girls, they're not locked in there. They go to public school, but some ran away, so they got transferred out, and so we had a group of 5, and then we were down to like 1 graduate, and we have access to communicate with their caseworkers, but when they go, like, that's it. So unless they have the line to the next person that might be their caseworker, they're lost to us, hopefully temporarily. But so this last class that we had 5 girls, which is the most that we've had in our program on the St. Louis side. And we were super excited, and we graduated 1 last weekend, and we have the geese for the other girls. So we're not so secretly hoping that they come back in some capacity. They could reach out to us separately outside of safe house situation and say, hey, I want to keep doing this, and we would find a way to make it work. We'll travel, we'll do whatever. We'll bend over backwards, we'll go to a gym with them, whatever it takes. But yeah, I mean, with social media, it's not exactly the most uplifting topic to be posting about, so we try to do feel good stuff and just talk about what we're doing when good things happen, and then funny stuff sometimes.
So one thing that you guys just did, you just had a big seminar, right, with a black belt takeover. Can you guys explain that? I see on social media all the time you guys have like black belt takeovers of your social media. Can you go into that detail?
So that was here in St. Louis. We try to do one really big event once a year to try to help us raise money. And that money could go towards things like mats, or if we do sponsor a survivor down the road, paying for their gym membership, because we don't have that money in our own pockets. So this last event we had was a black belt takeover. It was a 2-day seminar with 7 black belts, and we sold a limited amount of tickets to it, and just a way to get the jiu-jitsu community together to try to raise money and raise awareness of human trafficking. Last year we had a roll-a-thon where it was an all-day roll-a-thon. Everyone from every gym can come and just roll open mat, train with everybody from different gyms, and Christina does an event in PA as well for our East Coast branch.
Christina, can you go into a little detail on what your event looks like?
Yeah, sure. So like Samantha had mentioned, this will be our second year. So our first year we did roll-a-thons in Missouri and in Pennsylvania. We try to keep them about 6 months apart. So we'll do January in Missouri and then July-ish time here in Pennsylvania. This year we're going to do the same thing we did in Missouri, a black belt takeover. So we're going to have a seminar, hopefully a 2-day seminar with between 6 to 8 black belts. And they'll take over. We'll split them up evenly, about an hour apiece, and then hopefully have open mat at the end. And it's like Samantha had mentioned, it's just to kind of bring the community together, bring awareness to not only our nonprofit, but sex trafficking and sex trafficking survivors, exploitation, all that, and kind of be able to raise money for these survivors because what we do, we have to buy the gis, we have to buy the mats, we want to make sure that, these survivors have everything that they need to be able to continue on with this therapeutic journey.
On your guys' gi that you give to these survivors, does it have your patch or anything like that? So it has your logo and whatnot?
It does.
Okay, I was just wondering because you're talking about how it's a sensitive subject, and I can imagine like someone be like, "Hey, that's a cool patch. Like, how did you get that?" And it's like, well, you know what I mean. So that's, but I mean, people can always redirect and say it's something else if they feel uncomfortable with it. But how do you guys get your gis made? Then do you just have a patch and get it sewn on like a random gi, or do you have like a manufacturer that you go through for it?
So we have a wholesale.
We have a part. Oh, sorry.
What was that?
We have a wholesale account through Gameness, and we partner with Gameness. So we pay for half of the gi. So if a standard Air Pro gi is $120, we pay for half of it, and then the organization that we're working with, like Crisis Aid or North Star Initiative in Pennsylvania, pays for the other half of it. So depending on how many survivors. Survivors, and we'll pay for half of the costs and they'll pay for the other half. And they actually took the PDF of our logo and made a patch and they sew it on before they send it out to us.
That's really cool. Have you guys ever thought about selling those as a fundraiser or anything like that?
People ask.
Yes. Yeah. We do have our patches though for sale.
Yes.
That you can purchase for your own gi. But as for like our signature gi, we don't have those available yet.
Is that a future thing? Are we going to drop some some hints? No.
Maybe. We've had lots of people email us about it.
So what is the next step for your organization then, Holly? What are you working on in the background to help these ladies out when they're doing these black belt takeovers and these camps and whatnot?
I'm just trying to keep the wheels on the bus for them. So I make sure that I do all the techie stuff. So I manage our Google for Nonprofit domain. So if we have any new volunteers that need to be registered into the system, get them added to the different chats that they need to be a part of, get them an email address, do social media posts and promotions if we're having an event, record some stuff, take pictures, and pretty much anything that they ask me to do, I will go get my shovel and do something.
Support for Elbows Tight is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped recently launched the Ultimate Men's Hygiene Bundle, the Performance Package. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code ETP20 at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that's about 8 million balls.
That's a lot of balls, Johnny. When Manscaped reached out to work with us, I instantly thought, yes, what a deal. I've been using Manscaped products for a while now, and when they mentioned helping out with the podcast, I thought it was a no-brainer. I have the Lawnmower 4.0 now, but I had the Lawnmower 3.0 and absolutely loved it. Also, most people think about Manscaped as just trimmers, but really they have ball deodorant, ball toner, the weed whacker, which is your favorite thing, right, John?
Yeah, I love the weed whacker. Look, I'm about to hit like 45 years old, so I got hair growing out of everywhere now. So it's coming out my ears. I'm like, man, where is that weed whacker? It's definitely my favorite.
Get 20% off and free shipping with the code ETP20 at Manscaped. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code ETP20. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools to get the job done with Manscaped.
So I'm guessing the biggest thing that like people can do to help is donate. Would that be the
Hell
biggest thing they
yes.
could do to impact?
And share our like socials, like follow, like, share, and donate.
How can we donate?
Absolutely.
How can someone donate to you guys? Do you have a GoFundMe, or is it through your website, or how does that work?
Through our website, primarily, and then at events, and then through just purchases of our t-shirts, sweatshirts, gi patches, and anything else that we come up with in the future. But mainly, we have a website, so it explains the whole mission, and then you can get merchandise through there, and then you can just do a straight donation if you want to too.
So what is the big like mission, or not? I don't want to say mission because you guys have a mission, but I like what's the where do you guys want to go with this? Like, how far do you want to reach? Do you want to be like all over the United States instead of just St. Louis and PA, or do you want to have people all like up here in Washington State, California, right? Do you guys want to have hubs everywhere? Like, what is the ultimate goal for your guys' organization?
To be able to eventually have hubs everywhere would be pretty much the ultimate goal. It would be really cool if we could have, a station in every single state eventually, or something, so that way we can kind of spread ourselves out without spreading ourselves out too thin. To be able to kind of make a team, like we have part of our, just within our internal volunteers, we've got North Carolina, Ohio, Florida. So we're slowly expanding out in the United States. It hasn't gotten any further for us to be able to do events and things like that yet. But eventually we would love to be able to cover more ground in the U.S.
What do you think is holding you up from doing that? Is it just personnel, time? Like, would you guys need to take this on as a full-time job in order for that to happen? Like, what do you think is holding you guys up from doing that?
A lot of it is, I do believe, with just finding volunteers. We had a really hard time finding that, just because, like you had mentioned before, it's because of what we do and because of our mission, it's very secretive. We can't always post updates and things like that. It's mostly like us just talking, so it has to be very trustworthy. So to be able to find volunteers has kind of been hard, but I think overall for all of us is just time. We all work full time. Samantha's a new mom. I'm a mom. Holly is a mom. So we just have, our own personal lives that we always try to take care of first. We're very much family first. And then try to do everything with the nonprofit, which sometimes it gets a little bit harder, especially being in completely different states and time zones sometimes. But I think overall we make it work, and it might be a slow progress to be able to get to our ultimate goal. But as long as we keep chipping away, I'm sure we'll get there.
How do you guys vet volunteers? Do you do a background check on them, or do you just interview them?
But you're talking to the police. They go right on their computer and they're like,
so that's like, I got all
no
the
warrants.
information.
We're good here.
She's letting us sit in her SWAT car. Like, hold on, what's his name? I got.
So for the volunteers who don't actually work with the survivors, most of those volunteers come through word of mouth. Brian is our training coordinator. He's in North Carolina. He actually volunteers for other nonprofits that deal with human trafficking. Jason is in Ohio, and he's our photographer. Our volunteers that don't work with the survivors are just friends or word of mouth. Now, when it comes to the volunteers that actually work with the survivors, we work with Crisis Aid International. So in order to be able to even work with those survivors, Crisis Aid runs their own background check, and they have their own training that they want anyone coming in contact with the survivors to do before they come into contact with the survivors, because you have to know how to interact with the survivors, triggers, things you can't say, and then we have our own additional training that we have. But yeah, background check is done through the homes that we're working with, and if they don't pass the background check, then they obviously can't work with us.
So do you have male and female victims, or is this just female only? As far as like,
that's a good question.
We would love to take on male victims. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the victims out there are female, overwhelmingly female. If do that, I don't want to say separate, but we may have to, because most females may not feel comfortable having a male there, or vice versa. A male may not feel comfortable because a woman may have kept them out or something. So we haven't come across it yet, and that's one of those things we'll have to attack when it comes across our plate, because we haven't been put in that position yet.
Yeah, I was curious because I was thinking about like your volunteers. I was like, well, I mean, I was wondering, like, the victims, would they even be comfortable with a male volunteer if that was like an instructor? And me and Travis, we have to do trafficking training every year. It's part of our work. And when we used to go overseas, like Jebel Ali and Bahrain, they had lots of male victims there that were in prostitution rings, things of that nature. That's why I was asking. I was just curious.
Do you guys have any statistics? Oh, no.
Statistics?
Yeah, got it. I can't say it. Go ahead, Nat.
Statistics?
On human trafficking, like how prominent it is in the United States, because we were both Navy, and we go to places that it's around the world is huge. Obviously, wherever the military is, human trafficking is a massive thing. Do you guys have any stats on how prominent it is in America?
One of the top 3 states that it's actually happening in right now is California, obviously. California, Texas, and Florida. Those are the top 3 states it's going on right now. But then you have other cities like St. Louis and actually Pennsylvania. They're small hubs. St. Louis has some major highways that cross through, like 44 and 270. There's some of the main international highways, and I mean, people are smuggling drugs, not just people, but drugs on these highways. As far as statistics off the top of my head, like 14,000 to 15,000 a year, people being trafficked throughout the United States. That's men, women, children. That's not just gender specific. Right. It's more prominent than people actually think. People think this is a overseas problem, a third world problem, and no, it's going on right here in your backyard. And most of the time, it's someone you know doing it. It's not a stranger. It's a family member, a friend, an acquaintance, and it's not glamorized like it is on TV where girl's walking down the street and she gets kidnapped. It's while you're in school, someone's grooming you on the social medias, and you leave to go meet them, and then before you know it, you're in a totally different state. So,
do you think there's anything the public could keep an eye out for, or anything like that would help? Like anything like that? I mean, I never hear about it other than when I'm at work and I'm taking my training. You know, your guys' website, I hear about it, but like in general, I never really hear about it. It doesn't make
news. You know what I mean? I feel like it's not on ever on the news especially like you mentioned how often it occurs in the United States and in your own backyard. I don't feel like it's preached enough how prominent it is.
I would say starting young, social media is the biggest predator. It is the predator. Most of the trafficking cases are starting young, and it's people being groomed online, kids being groomed online, people, underprivileged children, poor, not getting the love and attention that they want at home, so they're seeking it elsewhere on the media, and that's where it's happening. So my advice would be for parents of young 13, 14-year-old kids to pay attention to what your kid's doing online and who your kid's talking to online. Snapchat's probably the biggest predator of them all, because you can see somebody's location and every conversation you have with someone disappears. You can't track it. So I would just say monitor your kid's social media is the biggest thing, and look out for someone who is starting to be withdrawn from their friends and family, starting to be more into their phone and conversations they're having with somebody online.
Kids better watch out.
Yeah, I was about to say, I have a 13-year-old stepson, 18-month-old son, and then my newest addition to the family is a daughter, right? I finally got my daughter, so me and my wife could stop having babies. But and that's like honestly like one of my concerns, right? As a father is someone trying to take advantage of any of my kids, right? Because like you said, it's boys too that it does happen to. Like my son could literally be walking around school and a teacher could be whispering in his ear certain things or whatnot, or trying to get him to go to the locker room or whatever. And it's like, honestly, like, man, it's just like a crazy thing to think about. And John, you have 2 daughters.
I have 3 daughters.
3 daughters, sorry.
And we just had 2 assistant coaches at a local high school get sentenced to jail. So, yeah, I mean, it could happen anywhere.
And one thing that you mentioned, too, is not knowing it's in your own backyard. One of my good friends, he's a captain in the Washington State Patrol, and he was in charge of the human trafficking for the Western Washington. Like, they split it right down the middle. And I was like, it can't be that popular in our area. He's like, oh, yeah, it's huge. He's like, the massage parlors, prostitution. He's like, you don't even realize how many kids go missing when in these human trafficking things, and then you don't see them until they're like 18, 20 years old, and people don't even know who they are anymore. He's like, it's actually a very, very big thing in Washington State. And that was an eye-opener for me, because my wife and I try to tell our son, like, don't trust people. He's like, why? What do you mean? I was like, just because you're a dude doesn't mean someone won't kidnap you. Like it'll happen to you too, So do you guys, or when you guys look at your kids, are you trying to preach that into you too? Like, it's got to be hard, especially for you ladies, when you see these victims, to not overthink it with your own kids, right? Like, how do you guys keep yourself level-headed when you see these women come from these horrible situations, and you're like, do you like instantly go to gravitate to your kids, and you're like, I'm never gonna let you leave the house. You're gonna be like Bubble Boy and just stay here.
No social media. Done.
Like, how do you find that happy median for your kids? I mean, I don't know if you guys have to be there yet, how old your guys' kids are. Both of you said, Samantha and Christina said you're newer moms, but like, are you guys already preparing yourself for this?
I am a step parent for a 10-year-old son. So for me, I'm like, I want to respect his right to privacy, but I also do this as a side project. And then I work in cybersecurity, InfoSec. So he will never have a device that I am not all up in. So I vet every app. He just, oh, can I get Discord? Let me do some reading. No, absolutely not. Yeah. Snapchat? No, absolutely not. Facebook? Not until you're a certain age. Instagram? Not until you're a certain age. Read the privacy policies. How do they track your data? What kind of data are they keeping? What is he posting? Like, my husband and I already have had to have conversations with him about how he communicates on text messages with his groups of friends, because you just can't say whatever you think or you feel. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't. And then we're like, well, we don't want their parents thinking like we're the shitty parents that like lets you like talk like, but then I am, but like whatever. I have a filter when I'm supposed to. So, but yes, it's already in my mind. If I had a daughter, I'd be like, you're doing MMA forever. You're gonna be a black belt in jiu-jitsu by the time you're 12. You will know how to like. How about judo? Krav Maga? Do you need to learn how to shoot a gun? I would be all the things. I would be so over the top extra, because yes, we know too much now, just from the training that we've had to take to have the privilege to work with survivors. I've learned things that have like terrified me. So,
well, it's interesting you say that,
because they have daughters.
Well, I have a 15-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old daughter. Both are in jiu-jitsu. The 15-year-old, well, she just left it, and I have a hard time getting her to go back to it. She stuck with it for about 3 years. My 10-year-old still goes. The problem I have is we don't have any women in our classes. That's the problem. So, like, when my daughter goes, if she's not partnered up with me, she's with some guy, and it freaks her out, and she doesn't like it. That's the biggest problem I have with keeping my kids in jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think all 3 of us have been there. When I started jiu-jitsu, I had to ask my professor if I could participate, because it was only dudes, and I thought no one's going to want to partner with me. But I mean, I was in my 20s, and I was still intimidated, so I totally get how your daughter would feel that way. So it's just something that you have to try to get comfortable with if you're really passionate about it.
Samantha, how are you preparing yourself for when your daughter, like Holly mentioned, my son, my 13-year-old son, he has an iPhone and my wife has an iPhone. And so she can literally look at everything, basically bring his screen up on her screen. You know what I mean? Like, she tracks everything with it. Like, where's he at? Who's he text messaging? Like Holly said, approving apps and whatnot, right? And more for him because he just wants to download random things. And I'm like, that could be malware, bro. Like, you shouldn't be downloading. Like, how are you preparing yourself for having these conversations or social media and whatnot with your kids?
So the fact that I'm a police officer and the fact that my husband is a Marine Corps veteran, I would venture off to say that she's not going to get away with shit when she's older. And then, fun fact, Holly is actually my daughter's godmother. So between the fact that she's got two awesome godparents and two parents who are basically going to helicopter over her, and I hate using that term because I never thought I would be a helicopter parent, but we're in 2022 and the world is a scary, scary place. There are so many predators out there and so many ill intentions that I just can't imagine sending her out into the world not being prepared. So absolutely she'll be in jiu-jitsu. Absolutely my husband does Krav Maga. She'll be in Krav Maga. I would like to think that by the time she's 18 and going off to college, I wouldn't have to worry about her because she'd be able to kick any boy's ass who tries to touch her. That's the goal. I want her to be very educated on this topic, and as soon as she gets to an age where she can mentally understand and her cognitive abilities are there, I can start teaching her about what's going on in the world. I don't want to scare her, but I want her to have the tools to go out into the world and make well-educated decisions and know what's right and wrong and how to pick out certain behaviors that may not be okay. And definitely to know that if a man touches you in a way you don't want to be touched, it's totally okay to throat punch him. I will back you up 100%.
Preach.
Absolutely. Christina, what about you?
So I have a 5-year-old daughter. I just keep her busy. And I always make sure that I'm there for her and we have open lines of communication. I always let her know that she can, always be open and trust me with anything that she has to say. So she does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, she does gymnastics, she does horse riding. So we keep her very, very busy just because I want her around good groups of people. I'd rather her spend her days when she's older at a barn stable brushing horses or cleaning up like a horse stall than going to, the street corners and hanging out with her friends and walking the street. So I always try to keep her very busy with a ton of different hobbies and projects on top of being there every step of the way. So I always make sure that of course, she has like a tablet or something so that way she has some way whenever we're out that she can kind of behave, how that is when you're out to eat.
Yeah.
But other than that, we always have like times where, we don't have phones. Like dinner time is just about talking. It's about your ups and downs for the day. What's your high? What's your low? And being able to always have that open line of communication with her, even though she's 5 years old, she's super intelligent. And so I just want to make sure that I'm continuously feeding her with the support that she needs.
It's funny you mentioned how she's already super intelligent, 5 years old. My wife, I told her, I was like, because obviously she's a girl, she doesn't realize it, but when girls mature so much faster than boys, like talking to his 10-year-old daughter is like talking to an adult sometimes. I'm like, you are too smart for your own good
Didn't
girl.
Get it from me, for sure.
Yeah, definitely not John. Talking to John's like talking to a plank sometimes. But it's funny you mentioned that because our youngest now is a daughter, right? So is a girl. And so I was like, babe, you're going to realize how fast she's going to mature. Mm-hmm. Like, she may be younger than our middle, but she's going to be more mature faster than he is. Like, boys are stupid. Like, you're going to realize how we're really dumb, and girls are really smart. So it's gonna be funny to see the transition when she starts to looking at her older brothers like, you guys are dumb. Like, what?
What do you think about creating a fake profile and then friend requesting your kids?
I don't know.
Stepping over the line.
I don't know if I'll
be like, look, I want to monitor. I'll be like, I'll be the fake friend on there.
Well,
no, that sounds like a bad idea. You need to go home and talk to your parents.
I'm not above it. But the scenario would have to be like, there would have to be a scenario in which I'm like, I got to do some super secret investigation here.
Yeah.
So I got to turn myself into like some 12-year-old dude. And
then you're kind of feeling awkward about it.
Catfish my stepson or something. I don't know. Like, is that the right word for catfishing, or if your stepmom is pretending to be an adolescent boy?
I don't know.
I don't like where this went.
Ethical
So just
dilemma.
take this whole part out, because I think.
Don't worry, in post-processing, I could just delete this whole question.
Yeah, I don't want him to find the podcast later and be like questioning when he does get Facebook.
Right.
Like, which one is my stepmom's fake account? Actually, you know what? I kind of want him to, because then he'll probably be on his toes.
That's right.
That's right. We're trying to get our oldest right now to, like you mentioned earlier, Holly, like you can't just say whatever you want to people, especially adults, because I tell my son, like, constantly, what you say and how you say it matters to people. Like, you can't just say what you want and not wait or not think that someone's going to get offended by it, angry by it, or take it the wrong way. He's very black and white, like probably most teenagers are, right? And so I'm like, dude, no offense, you sound like a dick right now. Like, he's like, what? I'm just saying it. Like, no, I understand, but like, you gotta understand, like, you can't just say that to people. Like, people are, I don't understand. I'm just telling them, I understand that, but like, yeah. You know what I mean? And I feel like kids today are so oblivious to social cues and whatnot, especially during thanks to the pandemic. You know what I mean? Like, kids being home for 2 years in a row. Like, my son lost out on so many social skills, and when he talks to adults now, I'm like, that is an adult, big guy. Like, you gotta show a little bit more restraint on your vocabulary. Have you guys noticed that as well?
For my stepson, he just he's good at interacting with adults, but he just doesn't look at them. And I'm like, hey, they're over there. Like, just look at them when you're talking. Like, it's okay. Like, they're not gonna bite. But yeah, I mean, the pandemic kind of ruined a lot for kids. Like, doing those 2 years in front of a screen really kind of changed some things for him too, I feel like, in his age group. So that was 4th and 5th grade for him.
I know. I would walk up to my son's room when he's in class, and he's like in a bathrobe looking up at the ceiling, and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm in class. I'm like, no, you're not. That's like, you're physically here, but you're not you're not mentally in class.
Well,
like, I mean,
that's
she's
just preparing you for a corporate life. Working remote, though.
I thought that's work from home.
Like, if I don't have to turn my camera on, I'm definitely you can guarantee I'm wearing my big fluffy robe. So,
have you guys seen those pictures of people working from home and they have like a tux top and then they're like shorts on the bottom?
No comment.
So to kind of. Yeah, right. To kind of switch over and go kind of more back to women in jiu-jitsu, what are your ladies' feelings? Christina, let's start with you. What are your feelings on women doing jiu-jitsu full-time and women's self-defense classes? Like, how do you feel about those things? Do you think they should do one more than the other? Or if they only have a certain amount of time, which one would they do?
Personally, I've only done jiu-jitsu, and I feel like it always depends on the class structure that you have and the coach that you have. I feel like if you have been in a situation that you feel like you need to be able to prepare yourself for, if you're afraid that same situation or scenario will happen again, 100% self-defense. If that's how you feel a lot more comfortable, it's, scenario based. However, I feel like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu not only makes me feel like I'll be able to protect myself, but it also gives me the confidence that I can carry moving off of the mat. So that way I feel like if I was ever put into a certain situation, I'll be able to kind of react, because Jiu-Jitsu is very much a mind game. I mean, obviously you work your body, but I'm much more mentally exhausted after Jiu-Jitsu than anything else.
Fighting for your life is hard and mentally taxing. Like, no matter how good you are. Holly, what about you?
I got really lucky with the school that I landed at. When I started doing karate and then moved into jiu-jitsu, my professor was always really good about giving the spin of, like, this is how you could use this for self-defense. I was the only girl doing any of that stuff. So I don't know if that was like part of the curriculum, or if he kind of added it in for my own benefit. So I agree with Christina. Like, I wouldn't say one over the other. I was lucky, and I feel like I got both out of the same school. But if you were put in a scenario and you want to practice what you can do to avoid confrontations like that, then you would do, what was it?
Self-defense.
Self-defense. Jesus. I got punched in the face a lot when I was younger. Anyway, do self-defense. It will give you more confidence no matter what. And then the jiu-jitsu aspect, I think, just builds on that confidence, really. Like, not being afraid to get taken down, not being afraid to be put in a uncomfortable situation, knowing how to think under pressure, knowing your limits physically. Like, I'm not going to try to do certain moves on somebody that's 3 times bigger than me, and knowing how to get those escapes from adversaries that are larger than me. I feel like jiu-jitsu in the long run really gives you more, but I think a good way to get people into jiu-jitsu might be through self-defense classes and saying, well, if you like this and you want to do more, try this.
Just a good point. Very good point on the end right there. Samantha, what about you?
Can you repeat the question? Because I was listening intently to Christina and Holly that I forgot what the actual question was.
No, bro. So, women's self-defense or regular jiu-jitsu, which one, if there was one over the other, which one would you choose and why or why not?
So, when I first started jiu-jitsu, I started it for the aspect of self-defense because I wanted to be in the FBI, and then I slowly fell in love with it and kind of turned to the competitive aspect and strayed away from the self-defense aspect. Competition jiu-jitsu was kind of a high that I was riding for a while. Now that I'm a law enforcement officer, I've kind of turned back to the self-defense aspect because I would rather keep myself safe, and I can't keep myself safe baramboling around a suspect. It's just not going to happen. I have to be realistic in my positions, and I have to think smart, and kind of the same thing as both of them. I wouldn't say one or the other, but I think women need to have self-defense because women are more susceptible to being victims than men. And I think every woman should have that in their pocket and be able to defend themselves. No one wants to be a victim, and it's not going to stop you from being a victim. Whatever happens is going to happen, but I think having that tool in your pocket is a very nice tool to have, and being confident in knowing that if something were to happen, you at least have a chance. So yeah, I kind of what they both said, not one or the other, but I lean more towards self-defense because of my career choice.
So I have a 2-part question for you. First, I'm going to give them the story about the Bremerton attack.
Oh, yeah. This is a terrible
we
situation.
had a real violent attack here a couple months ago where a lady was going into a parking garage, probably about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. She went in by herself. She got attacked in the elevator. She fought, stabbed, screamed, fingernails, you name it, to this guy. He was, I think 6'5", 280 pounds, big guy, right? She fought as much as she could, couldn't do anything. He was raping her. Another lady came in, stopped, he stopped, ran off. The police arrested him like on the 2nd floor, right? So part of this question is, with your law enforcement backgrounds, how do you stay motivated when you have a perpetrator like him who had 3 or 4 felonies, got out of, they basically let him out on parole, like $2,000, and then 2 months later he does this, and I mean, he violent offender, carjackings, you name it, just in jail a couple months prior, and they let him out with this ridiculous bail. So I'd like to get your opinion, like, how do you stay motivated when you arrest someone like this, and then they're right back on the street 2 months later? And the second question is, my wife and Travis's wife tried a self-defense class for jiu-jitsu, right? But it was women only. My problem with that, and I told my wife, is if she gets attacked by a male, he's going to be stronger. He's going to be aggressive. He's probably on meth or PCP or something. And I don't feel like when they do a self-defense class where it's just women, they're going to get the actual feel of how to defend themselves if they get attacked in a parking garage by some crazy guy that's a freak of nature. And that's always rubbed me the wrong way when they do those self-defense classes. So I just want to get your opinion on those things. And by the way, my wife asked me, she said, what could she have done different to prevent that from happening? Like, what could she have done to get away from that guy? And they didn't like my answer. I said it sounded like she did everything she possibly could, other than she shouldn't have been in that situation. As in, walking into a parking garage at night by yourself. The only thing I could think of is don't be there was the only way she could have got out of that. And they didn't like my answer, but I didn't have an answer other than that.
They're like, what move could she have used?
And
I was like, there's nothing. There's no move that's going to stop someone like that. You know what I mean?
I couldn't give an answer that made them happy.
So to answer the first question, it's really fucking hard to stay motivated, especially here in St. Louis. I'm not going to talk crap about our politicians here in St. Louis, but anyone from St. Louis listening to this podcast knows who is running the PA's office for St. Louis County and who's running the PA's office for St. Louis City, and knows that they're not doing law enforcement any favors. It's really, really hard. I can't tell you how many cases I've had sent off where someone overdosed, but there was fentanyl on the scene of the overdose. So I charged them with possession because you wouldn't be overdosing if you didn't have all this fentanyl in your house. And my case gets shut down. Or I find crystal meth in a car and they decide, oh, it's not enough evidence. It's like, if there's crystal meth right here, how's that not enough evidence? Okay.
Right.
But it's really, really hard. The only answer I can come up with for that is it makes me sleep better at night knowing that I'm taking shitty people like that off the street. And I can live with myself knowing I did everything I could. I wish we had better politicians in office, and I wish we had better prosecuting attorneys. And the only answer to that solution is people need to get out and vote and do their due diligence to vote for the right candidate. As far as the second question goes, I completely 100% agree with that. I've always said you don't get to pick your opponent on the street. So when I've trained, I haven't trained obviously the last 9 months because I've been pregnant, but when I do train, I always try to train with the biggest guy in the room, the strongest guy in the room. I at least attempted it. And I've had situations where I've had to fight people on the streets and I didn't get to pick my opponent. And even though I had a gun and pepper spray and a baton and all these cool things, I don't want to rely on them because, hey, we have body cameras now. You're being watched and media is going to misconstrue me using my pepper spray or me using my taser. They're going to say, oh, I just relied on it. It was a crutch, and where I could have gone hands-on. But on the same token, if I'm in a situation where the dude's bigger than me and I'm on the streets and I'm by myself and my closest assist is like 5 minutes away, I'm going to do what I have to do to go home at the end of the day. And I will go home because now I have a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Right. So I just wanted to comment on this scenario you had said, like what she could have done a little bit differently. First of all, I just want to say I respectfully disagree with what you had said. And I only say that because that it's almost like victim blaming, right? It's almost like saying, oh, well, if she didn't wear that short skirt, she wouldn't be asking for it. You know, well, as a person, you can't go off of what somebody else is doing and use that as a reason as to why something bad happened to them. So as far as training, obviously, you know, if she did self-defense or jiu-jitsu, it may have helped. We don't know what her background was. We don't know if she's had any of that. If you know that you're going to be, but in the same token, like you had mentioned, if you know that you're going to be alone at night in an enclosed space where you don't really know if anybody's hiding behind a car or around the next corner, like you don't have open view or a clear view of what's going on, you always want to make sure that you're protected. So even though I have my 10 years of jiu-jitsu experience and I've done MMA and I've done all these, I'm always safe because you never bring a knife to a gunfight, right? So I always have my pepper spray. I always have a knife on me. I carry a gun. I always have those things on me. Samantha had mentioned those are things that she feels like she can't rely on being when she's on the line, task of duty while she's working. However, as a woman, if I'm in an elevator, the first thing I'm going to reach for is the first thing that's going to get you off of me right away. So you always want to make sure that you're 100% prepared. And that's not just in the background of training, but that's also making sure that you have things on you. Unfortunately, being a woman, that's how it is nowadays. I feel like you always have to make sure that you're protected, always have to be looking over your shoulder. It's not fair, but that's unfortunately how it is. But in the same token, you had mentioned that you don't agree with or don't like that it's women only self-defense, and I 100% agree with you because we made a comment earlier that it's mostly women that are sexually abused. However, we don't actually know if that's a real life statistic, only because not a lot of men come forward because they're not believed. Because it's, oh, how can a woman, you're bigger than her, you're stronger than her, how can you let this happen type of thing. So to be able to have a class that welcomes men, it doesn't only help the women to be able to protect themselves against an attack from a male, if that is who they get attacked by and not another woman. It also makes the man feel comfortable and vulnerable enough to be able to know that whatever happened to me, if something did, it's okay, it's not my fault, and I'm going to be able to become better from that. And it helps you to be able to work with a female, to be able to protect yourself. Even though you're supposedly stronger than her, how are you going to be able to keep her at a distance where you can get away safely, so that way the tables don't get turned on you, and so on and so forth.
I totally agree. And what I meant by that was the situational awareness aspect. Like, I'm never going to walk downtown Seattle, even at 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, even though I can still carry, because I know that place is just too dangerous.
Right.
Like, that's all I meant by that. But I completely agree with what you said.
So how do we get, I asked Katie Egan this. She's a brown belt here over in Washington State. She runs the Instagram Women Who Roll. If you guys haven't checked her out, she's great. We talked to her, and one question I asked her, and I would love to get your guys' opinion on it too, is how do we get more women into jiu-jitsu? Because we all can agree it's an amazing martial art, very important to learn how to defend yourself, and unfortunately, like you just said, especially women. And so I feel like there's a major disconnect in women getting into the doors. How can we do that? As men, as a community, as women, how can we do that?
I feel like you have to be an advocate for your gym specifically. I know that you had mentioned that your daughter stopped doing jiu-jitsu after 3 years because she was the only one. So I have only been the only woman in class for a long period of time. Most of my training has just been with guys only. And the only reason why I stuck it out is because I was like, I want to be that girl. I started jiu-jitsu and I didn't have anybody. I didn't have anyone to relate to. I didn't have anybody to look up to. It was pretty much just me on the mats with all these guys. So for me, it was, I wanted to be that difference in another girl's, if she walks into the gym and she's nervous, I will be the one that walks up to her. I will welcome her to the mat, and I will try to get her comfortable enough to stay, because a lot of it has to do with, like what Holly had said, it's comfortability with being on the mats. You are shy, you're nervous, it's your first time doing something, it's a very close in contact sport, and you're the only female. So being a huge advocate for your gym, I think is the number one factor. I mean, obviously you can go on like jiu-jitsu pages and say how amazing jiu-jitsu is, but being able to be there during the classes as a female and welcome other females and try to kind of market and get more women into your gym, I think would be a lot helpful in my opinion.
That's good. I could probably work on that and greet a little more when they come in the gym.
Yeah.
I'll work on that.
Holly, what do you think?
I mean, I agree a lot with what Christina says. Like, when I started doing jiu-jitsu at my school, I was the only girl. I was the only girl trying to get my black belt in karate. I was the only girl sparring. I was the only girl. There were girls there to take kickboxing class, but you had a partner. So just it starts with somebody. It just so happened to be me. But after that, learning so much and feeling so empowered, other girls, because jiu-jitsu class at my school was right after kickboxing. So I would just get out there and start shrimping, and eventually like another girl would talk to me about it after kickboxing class, and they'd be like, oh, what is that? And I'd be like, it's this, it's awesome, just try it. You don't have to keep doing it if you don't like it. I really like it, blah, blah, blah. And it was just advocating for the sport. Like, it looks like you're not being welcome because dudes aren't going to rush up to you and be like, oh my God, I'm so glad you're here, because that's creepy. Right. So it's a really fine line to like, for men to encourage women to do jiu-jitsu, because they're like, yeah, come roll with us and we'll get all sweaty and like it'll be great. And you're like, that sounds gross. And
now you're scaring me off from the great. Yeah, I was like, I could greet more. Now I'm like, no,
shit,
I'm not.
I've definitely done that before.
Yeah.
I don't.
Like, have you ever wanted to feel the feeling of someone else's sweat dropping directly into your pupil? Yeah. Come try jiu-jitsu. You'll love it. No, that's not how you're going to get people to come through the door. So, I mean, and I honestly don't have like good advice as a man how to encourage a woman to want to do jiu-jitsu. I only know how to encourage it from a female perspective, which is that it's really awesome. You'll find out that you're way stronger than you thought you were. All these things that you might consider a weakness about yourself are actually advantages, because we've got skinny necks, we're harder to triangle, and I've got skinny arms, and so I can just swoop right out, and like I'm more compact, so when I turtle, like my spaces are smaller, so good luck to you. Like those are all advantages that you would think, well, I'm too small, I'm not that strong, and da 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 da. Like I don't have a lot of muscles, and it all ends up actually once you figure out your game, you know, you just work all of those things to your advantage. So that's a whole lot to say. I agree with Christina.
It's funny you mentioned the what people think are your weaknesses. We always talk about her. We have a 16-year-old girl named Riley. She listens to the show. Apparently, she's making like a montage of how many times we talked to her on the show because she's so inspirational. She does wrestling. She did judo for a while. She's an orange belt in jiu-jitsu. But when I roll with her, it's like I have to be very technical with her because she will take advantage of like me like being lackadaisical. Like I don't use my size and strength and whatnot. I have to be very technical. But I remember one time she was a gymnast also. I remember one time I had single leg X on her and I went for a sweep and she just did the splits and I didn't get the sweep and I was like, okay, well I guess I'm gonna have to try something else now. like I won't do that. My rock bottom is like my feet like 2 feet apart. You know what I mean? Like that anything past that I'm going over. You know what I mean? So I think people like you mentioned, you start to realize like these things that you might think aren't that important actually are very powerful when it comes to how you do a technique or what works for you and what doesn't. I have short, thick legs. I can't triangle people to save my life. You know what I mean? So I just don't do that, right? Like I'm a little bit of a bigger guy. Baron bowling doesn't work for me, right? But I can deliver a good amount of pressure. You know what I mean? Like that's pressure passing and smashing people. That's something that I do work for. And I think women, once they actually start figuring out their game, they start to realize like, oh, this works great for me. It's like a guy can't stop this. I don't care how good he is. You know what I mean? Getting triangled by a girl sucks. Like I'm just
wrist locks work for everyone. Just so you know.
I love wrist locks.
Oh, well, we got another one. So, Samantha, what about you? How would you say we can advocate a little bit more?
Same thing as Christina and Holly, and I think every female would agree, advocating to get females in there and being supportive. Girls are unfortunately mean. They're not the nicest, and I've been to gyms where I've walked in and there's been other girls there, and I get mean mugged because I'm the blue belt walking in and they don't know me, and it's not nice. It's not welcoming. I think advocating and being the female that lifts up the other women's crown and women empowerment, not so much the feminist perspective, but empowering each other, because we've come a long way. There was a point in time when women jiu-jitsu wasn't a thing. Women in martial arts wasn't a thing. We had to fight our way to get here. And now that we're here, now we're in competitions and there's women who could take on some of the best black belt men in the world. And I think empowering is very, very important, and encouraging and uplifting one another and not being nasty and rude when new people come in, and just welcome them. Because like Christina said, there was a point in time where I was the only female, and I would hate if another female walked in and she left because she didn't feel welcomed. It's not my style. I know it's not Holly's style or Christina's style, and hopefully none of the women listening to this podcast style. So definitely advocation.
One thing that Katie told us that I really took to heart was including the women as like, you know, one of the guys, like not being afraid of rolling with them. Because I'm not going to lie, rolling with a woman was kind of intimidating for me because I didn't want them to feel uncomfortable with me putting my hand somewhere or doing a certain move, right? And it's like, honestly, talking to more women that do jiu-jitsu is kind of stupid looking back on it now, but a lot of men don't overcome that barrier of uncomfortability rolling with a woman also. Especially if, like, say you're rolling with a woman, your wife walks in and she's like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? So, and that was one thing that I really started to do was I was like, I would like ask the women, like, do you want to roll? Like, we're both teammates, we're partners. Like, well, we could both learn from each other. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I really had to do. So kind of onto that, how do you think it's dumb that guys do feel that, or how would you tell guys to get over that? Like, you guys want to roll with men, you guys want to roll with women. Like, you don't want to be stuck to just rolling with the women in class, right? So how would you kind of break that ice for men?
I would say I don't necessarily. It's nice that a guy is like, oh, do you want to roll? Like for Christina and I, and probably Sam too, there's been instances where there are no girls to choose from. So it's kind of like, yeah, bitch, we're going to roll because like this is it. So, but I guess for me personally, like if a man is unsure or uncomfortable wanting to roll with me, just know that like I've already accepted like the what happens to my body and your body when we're rolling. So it's not something that's I feel like maybe men are overthinking it a little bit and being like, oh my God, touching things
Absolutely.
and like she's gonna get offended and then I'm gonna feel like an ass and it's like, no, we already know.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, like we already know. Like we've been doing jujitsu. So unless it's like their absolute first class and you're just like going ham and doing some weird shit you shouldn't be doing, like she's already at a point where she's like, yeah, it's gonna there's weird positions. There's, there's mount and all that stuff and like sweats everywhere and limbs are everywhere and I don't think that you guys have to feel uncomfortable or ask permission per se, but just show that you're respectful. If they seem uncomfortable, then yeah, be like, hey, do you want to roll? We can keep it light, da 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 da. But I was also taught that like ask for what I want. So like if I have an injury or I see somebody who's like spazzing and they like call me out to roll, I'll be like, water break, like not today, Satan.
Gotta fix my belt.
Yeah, like
Shit,
no.
I do that too. Oh, actually, I gotta go. Sorry.
Yeah. But I mean, I learned that from my professor because I thought I had to take every role that was offered to me because if I didn't, then I was weak because I was the girl. And then as I belted up and like learned more about myself and my own game and my well-being and my injuries that I stubbornly ignored for too long, like I got to a point where I was like, I'm not here for that today. And if she doesn't want to roll with any of y'all, she'll be like, I don't want to fucking roll with you. I'll just be doing some drills over here, or I'm going to go home now. So.
Yeah. And I think like to play off what Holly had said is also just being aware of the female because everybody comes in with different personalities. So you're going to be able to tell when a girl's more shy than one that's more outgoing, right? And to be able to just work with them. So if they're shy to roll, be like, hey, what you want to just do the technique that we just did? What about you and I just drill this round? And, to get them more comfortable, because it doesn't necessarily mean that the women, because we don't, at least I have never overthought the way that you had mentioned men do about like, being close and touching and all that stuff. It's more than just like, what do I do if I get in this situation? Like, I don't want to like get squished the whole time. So just being aware and being able to actually work with the female partners because nobody likes, I know that sometimes it's intimidating to be able to roll with a girl but girls are very intimidated by guys in general just with the bigger size, so you don't want to go and get squished the whole time. You want to be able to learn and roll, and so I think just being aware of the female partner that you have and the personality that you're working with.
So one question that we like to finish up the podcast with is, if you had one piece of advice for a brand new white belt starting jiu-jitsu, I don't think I explained it good enough. This podcast is made for like the beginning practitioner. I don't know if you guys caught on to that. So we always like to try to market everything towards that beginning practitioner. So what would one piece of advice be for that brand new white belt that is just starting their journey on jiu-jitsu? Samantha?
I would say don't give up. Jiu-jitsu is not easy, and this is something I tell the survivors. It's actually in our PowerPoint presentation that we go over. Jiu-jitsu is not easy. It's very hard, and it takes a very, very long time to get really good at it. And sometimes the people who are even really good at it aren't that good at it because they still have a vast amount of learning to do. Don't give up. Keep going. Keep coming to class. Keep doing the same drills over and over and over because it'll click one day. It will click, and when it does, you'll be like, it makes sense. I get it now. Don't give up.
Holly?
Yeah, same. I was going to say don't give up, but also just embrace the process because there's going to be a lot of times where you are not sure why you keep showing up to class because you're either the hammer or the nail, right? And for a long time, you're just the nail. So as a white belt, you just got to be there knowing that someday you will be the hammer. the right way though, like not just hurting people and smashing them because you're bigger or whatever, or you learn to move and now that's the only thing you do. But yeah, don't give up. I mean, if you're passionate about being good at jiu-jitsu, that should be the drive even when you're not having a good time. Or I should say, you feel like you're not having a good
There's a lot of highs on
It's
those.
a fun thing. Don't quit.
Yeah, right. Christina?
I would say, well, obviously don't give up, but I think first and foremost is to find a gym that your personality meshes with. You know, it's an investment. Jiu-jitsu is an investment. You have your hard-earned money that you're paying to be able to go and do these classes to learn from. So you want to be able to go to a professor that you feel comfortable with, that you know is going to go and give you his full attention. You don't want to go to a class where they show technique and you look over and the guys on the side on his phone on his mat just sitting there while you're getting like strangled and you don't know what to do, right? So you want somebody that actually enjoys teaching, has a passion for teaching, and maybe if you're lucky enough, it's a gym right down the road. For me, I was driving almost an hour one way to be able to train in the beginning. You just really need to be able to be with a community that feels like a family, and then after you find that, don't give up.
Well, I want to say thank you, ladies, so much for giving us your time today. This was a great conversation. I enjoyed your guys' point of view on everything. I love your guys' nonprofit that you're doing. I think it's super important for a lot of people out there, and I wish you guys had more exposure and we're able to promote what you're doing more, right? But I understand the secrecy, and it's really hard to do. If people want to find more about your guys' organization, where can they look you guys up at?
We're on the socials, A New Grip on Facebook, on Instagram, and then our website, anewgripbjj.org, for donations and swag and merchandise, patches, whatever we fancy. And then on our social media, when we're having events, there'll be tons of posts about that. And usually we do our tickets through Eventbrite with a quick link from there. So on Facebook and Instagram. And so we welcome likes, follows, and shares, and messages, questions, all of that stuff. We want to engage with the people as much as possible. And thank you for having us.
Perfect. And that's where they'll see all those black belt takes over and all that stuff if they want to come. Our outsiders are, like you said, are welcome to come. It's just a limited spot for these events that you put on, right?
Yep. And like anything that we do, like the roll-a-thons, the black belt takeover seminars, anything that we do is open to anybody and everybody. It's not gender specific. It's not belt specific. If you've never done jiu-jitsu in your life and you're just curious and you want to support our cause, show up, because one of us can work with you or just hang out with you. We don't ever want anybody to ever feel like they don't have that there's some sort of requirement to attend one of our functions.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again for coming on. It was a blast. I'm glad we finally got this done. Time flew by. I couldn't believe it's already been almost an hour and a half. I was just
so
thank you everyone for yeah, right. That's what happens when you have a great conversation. It just keeps going. Actually, my hands are like I forgot to turn the fan on in this room, and it is boiling in here right now. My computer's in the background. It's a small room. John's hot breathing over here.
I am. Yeah, I'm still congested. I'm like, I feel like I'm running a marathon.
So thank you everyone for listening at home. Thank you everyone for watching at home. Be sure to go check out A New Grip. Go follow them on social media. Follow, donate, and all that stuff. And remember, no LJX here.
Oof.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.